I'm back.
Yes, I can see that.
Whoops. Hi, I'm back. Last you saw of me here was January. How long ago was that? 8 months ago? I don't know what happened. I mean, I do know what happened. I got a job, yay. And then I was in a play, yay. And I was also writing that play at one point, but now I'm not writing that play, but now I am in that play. I was busy, basically. Anyway, it's fine. I'm here now, and some of you won't even know who I am anyway, so let me reintroduce myself. Hello, I am Izzy. I love all things TV, and I'm trying my best. I've come back for a super momentous occasion, and that is season 2 of Good Omens dropping on Amazon Prime. This time last week, it was last Friday, and woo, I've got to talk about it. You might be able to tell I'm like doing a little Aziraphale kind of moment today. I've got a Queen t-shirt on, I've got my Aziraphale blazer. I would have curled my hair, but it actually looked alright for once, so this is what we're dealing with. I did kind of want to change to Crowley halfway through the video, but I thought that's a little bit extra. Anyway, I'm here to just give my brief thoughts on Good Omens 2. This video will contain spoilers. Sorry, it's a very difficult kind of plotline not to give spoilers for, just because of how condensed it is. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but yeah, unfortunately this won't be a spoiler-free video, so if you haven't watched Good Omens 2 yet and you think you want to, goodbye. See you again after you've watched it. Have fun. I've really loved engaging with theories on Tumblr and on Twitter, or X, or whatever the fuck it's called now. I've really loved reading them, and I've really loved kind of gradually getting to know series 2 with other people, because I didn't binge watch it. I didn't have time. I was really busy. I was in a show last week and I just didn't have time to binge watch it. So it was nice to kind of have it trickled. I am going to talk about each episode individually a little bit. This kind of won't be the same level of detail as my Sandman review video. If you want to go and watch that, that is me delving into each episode, reviewing each episode as an individual and within the series. This is just going to be me saying what I liked about each episode, what I connected with in each episode, as well as the whole arc. Beginning with my overall thoughts, I'm going to start with a big one, and it's that it's not what I was expecting. I've seen a few people say this, and I agree with it completely, but also, do I know what I was expecting? Not really. Kind of immediately, I think episode 1 and 2 might have actually been the most like this, but the vibe felt very different to series 1. It felt very crisp. There was a lot of VFX going on. I don't know how much of series 1 was VFX, but it just felt very heavy this time. The vibe felt very different. It felt very, oh, we're really focusing on Crowley and Aziraphale, and I guess last series we had more diversions within the main plot from them. So we had like Anathema and Newt, Shadwell and Tracy, the kids, and Aziraphale and Crowley like aren't actually in it a lot, but maybe because this time they were in it a lot, it threw me, but also I was expecting that. So yeah, I don't know how to word it, but it's kind of not what I was expecting, kind of was what I was expecting. I think compared to series 1, the structure of this series lends itself more to a rewatch. Now this is because of how the mini-sodes have been handled this series. They are part of each episode, and the amount of actual main plot that you get is a lot less. So I think I'll talk more about it when I talk about the episodes, but like episode 4, from what I remember, you have very little present day plot stuff, and the mini-sodes are quite heavy. And I think because, you know, there's a lot to see in each mini-sode and it's not necessarily like over-egging the plot for you, I think that lends itself more to rewatches, because you can just kind of delve, you'll go, oh, I want to watch episode 3. Not necessarily I want to rewatch the full series. I'm gonna watch episode 3 because I can, because it stands alone because of the mini-sode and the little amount of plot that's actually in it. And obviously I think that's really good for like viewing figures and rewatch and renewing for a series 3 hopefully. Basically I think it's just a lot more, you can dive in and dive out again, barring episode 6, I want to say. In that same vein, I think the episodes go by really quickly because of how they're structured. I think they are like a little bit different lengths maybe, but like it's blink of an eye and they're gone because it's 2 halves. I think I thought this about episode 3 in series 1, because half of it is like mini-sode and half of it is the plot. It feels like the shortest episode ever, but it isn't. Yeah, that was just an observation. Lastly, on the whole series, it's really nice to see Michael Sheen and David Tennant acting together after they've, you know, worked together a lot more on stage, got to know each other better. It's really nice to see Aziraphale and Crowley through the eyes of these two actors and how they connected on screen. And obviously, like, it was really important for this specific plot that they did connect really well on screen. It was just lovely to see. Diving into episode 1, I am gonna like rapidly go through the things that I have on my little list that I just really loved. So I mean, the first scene in episode 1, you have pre-fall Crowley and Aziraphale with Crowley crafting the nebulas. I immediately cried. I was in a B&B because, as I said, I was in a show last week. I was in Bedford. I was in this bed in this B&B at like midnight, and I saw that little Crowley and I just burst into tears. It was lovely to see them, and especially like that. That was so cute. Good old-fashioned lover boy was in it. Do I want to say my favourite song? I mean, you see my Queen t-shirt, Queen of my favourite band. Good old-fashioned lover boy is an immense song, and it is the Good Omens song, and it was in the episode. Okay, a bit less like than what I just said, but I think I briefly mentioned this episode felt a bit disjointed and a bit random. If you've tried to watch series 2 and you watched episode 1 and you were like, I don't like it, I would keep going. Basically, I think episode 1, in my opinion, oh, my voice just like jumped out my body. In my opinion, I think episode 1 is one of the weakest. It just feels like the plot is kind of being cobbled together a bit, and like it makes so much more sense as you watch, but like I was watching episode 1 like, what was the plot that just happened? It finished and I wasn't really sure, and I was like, okay, woo. Episode 2, I don't remember a lot about this episode. What I do remember is Ty Tennant in the mini-sode. I'm seeing a lot about this mini-sode. I'm getting quite a big impression that it's the favourite mini-sode of the fandom. Don't quote me on that, I might be wrong, but it's the Book of Job from, I was going to say the library, the Bible. Book of Job, and Ty Tennant, Pete Davidson are in it. Yeah, that's kind of all I really remember about the episodes of the mini-sode though. This is what I was saying about the plot, because the mini-sodes make up so much more of the episodes than I thought they would. I kind of forgot when the actual plot happened. I will say that the scene on the mini-sode in the beach with Crowley and Aziraphale is possibly like one of the nicest scenes of the whole series. Aziraphale being like, take me to hell, like so sure that he's done something wrong. Crowley be like, oh, I don't think you like it there. It broke my heart so much, and kind of in this baffling mini-sode where Crowley looks like that. You know, I'm seeing a lot of Bill Dad the Shoeite stuff on my Twitter. It was a lovely scene, a really, really lovely scene. Episode 3 was so me. It was so me. Episode 3 is Victorian, or like, I don't like Edwardian? No, earlier than that, Georgian, like that kind of era. It's spooky, it's dark, and it was just, it was beautiful. But the plot of the mini-sode here like really did slap. Like, don't get me wrong, I liked the Job mini-sode, but this was just a lot of me. There was a lot of me in it. Muriel as we now know, was introduced a lot more in this episode, and I thought Muriel, and I'm gonna say Shax as well, who were 2 new characters for this series, I thought they were really, really strong additions. You know, we've lost like New and Anathema, the kids, and like Madame Tracy, but we've got Madame Tracy's actor Miranda Richardson coming back as Shax, and then Muriel as well. They're great characters. Like, each time they were on screen, I really enjoyed seeing them. I got such Shax, so cool, such a cool character. Yeah, they were really good to have, and Muriel obviously introduced a lot more in this episode as Inspector Constable.
Hello,
so
hello,
cute.
hello.
I think the scene with the Bentley, with Aziraphale driving the Bentley in this episode was one of my favourite scenes of the full series. When it turned yellow, the travel suite, Aziraphale doing the full pouty like, oh, but it's pretty. That was, Aziraphale was really adorable this series, and I felt such a strong connection to them, which made the ending heartbreaking. On the point of 2 characters that I haven't really talked about yet, which is interesting considering what the actual plot is about. I can never say this right. Beelzebub? Yeah, I think so. Beelzebub was in this episode quite prominently, I think. Again, I'm getting a bit confused, but like I wasn't really that invested in them. This is probably a personal thing because I'm seeing quite a few people like, yes, Beelzebub. But like I was like, yeah, I can take it or leave it. Like I was more bothered about Aziraphale and Crowley like I was in series 1. Episode 4, breathtaking, immaculate, gorgeous, superb, loved it, wonderful, adored. This one was super mini-sword heavy. Like I remember thinking when the episode was on, like, are we getting like plot? I think this might be what's maybe alienated some people with this episode. Like I'm not seeing a ton about it on social media, which shocked me because I adored it. But I think maybe because there's way less of the plot in this one, that might be like people like, oh whatever, can take that episode or I can leave it, which is fair enough because you don't need it that much if you're watching it for the full through line of the series. Across the board generally the mini-swords were very, very strong, but I just think this one in particular, it was the funniest. I think it was like able to carry the diversion from the main plot really well. The characters were really well formed. The massive, like, not the denouement, the bit before it, climax, that's what I mean, with the bullet catch trick. I thought it was just beautifully written. Also the League of Gentlemen slay. I'm a big League of Gentlemen, Rhys J. Smith, Steve Pemberton, Inside Number 9 fan, and having Jeremy Dyson as one of the writers, and then Rhys J. Smith playing a leading demon. That was so much fun. I really loved it. Is allegedly the lowest rated episode, I think, of all of Good Omens. I really can't wrap my head around it. I mean, I kind of can because I appreciate that it's kind of like someone crafted an episode for me and put it in the series, but also like, be fair, come on. Bullet catch, Crowley, and looking like that. Episode 5, the specific writing in this episode I thought was the strongest. The bits in the ball, the Jane Austen ball, were like extremely funny, extremely well written. I think I just said episode 4 was the funniest mini-sode. I think episode 5 is the funniest episode overall. It just landed beautifully, I think. What I really liked about this episode is that it had the kind of cliffhanger vibe to the end of it. It felt more like, oh, now we have to be in the plot. Like, we've done the mini-sodes and now we are in the plot. A big part of this was Crowley was brought right into the narrative, which was very needed for episode 6, but I think the beginning of the series felt more Aziraphale fronted to me. That might be just because Aziraphale is like my favourite character in anything ever, but Crowley seemed to come into it more towards the end, which worked really well for their development and eventual like end of the series. What I also really liked was how Crowley was established kind of as a saviour character. We see in episode 5, Crowley is glued to Aziraphale, like everywhere he goes. People are putting screenshots of like Crowley looking out, Crowley checking that Aziraphale's alright, Crowley doing this, Crowley doing that, and I really liked how that was gradually established throughout the mini-sodes very well, and then you had it more ingrained in the plot. It was just, I think, a really, really well written episode. Well done Neil Gaiman. Episode 6, shoot me in the head. I can't, it's difficult to articulate feelings about this without it being overshadowed by the last 10 minutes. However, what I will say is that maybe I'm stupid, but the Gabriel and Beelzebub thing really caught me off guard, like massively. I think I am thick. I did not notice the flies. I did not even pick up that that might be a connection. I was so baffled for the entire series going, I really don't get why Gabriel's lost his memory and he's now Jim and he's here. And I consider myself quite media literate, you know. I still didn't pick it up. Don't get me wrong, it was cute and the parallels were supremely clear, and the little every day it's getting closer motif was beautifully used throughout the series to lead to it. I just didn't see it coming at all. I was blindsided, I'll be honest. I have got reactions from the last 10 minutes of the episode. I'll insert some for you now. Giddy boy, Get the boy. No. What are you doing? What are you doing? This is the worst day of my life. Neil Gaiman is not seeing heaven, I'm afraid. This like hurt my heart. Some of these things I watch and it's just tears and tears and tears and tears. Like when I watched The Sound of a Wing, Sandman, that was just like I could not stop crying. But like I was like, oh, it's got something to it, uplifting in my soul. This, like, I had to force the tears out. I knew they wanted to come and it was painful and guttural. And I didn't know what to do with myself. I am very glad that there is clearly more to come. Like, this is not the end of the story. It's not the end of the story, and that split shot at the end of Crawley and Aziraphale, I think proves that it's not the end of the story. They're not, at no point, I don't think, were they both admitting that this was the end in their facial expressions. Both, while heartbreaking, were very hopeful, I think, and very, like, Aziraphale had a lot going on in his head. It's also been really interesting to read theories about this. I'm not going to spread any because, like, if you want to see theory, I know some people really don't want to see theories and they want their own headcanons, absolutely fine. But if you want to go seeking theories on Twitter or Tumblr, the coffee theory is a big one. If you just kind of search like the Metatron and Good Omens, you will get a lot. They're just very interesting because the way this season's structured, it felt very contained. And it clearly isn't. There clearly has to be something that has been planted, maybe even in series 1, to get us to the end of series 3. Because that's the thing with this show. Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett had sequels planned. They know where it was going. And with that comes like this massive gift of being able to put stuff in that will lead you to your endpoint and make people go, aha, I remember now. Like, even things with music, I talked about this in a Sandman video. With the Sandman adaptation, they know where it's going to end. They know where it has to end. What they can do in the musical motifs is like drop in something in series 1 that gets used again, for example, for Morpheus in the Kindly Ones, that will shatter your heart because it's been dropped and your brain knows it's there. Like, I'm very intrigued to see what these things are for Good Omens, because I know they must be there. Neil Gaiman is a very clever writer and the whole team are very clever and the whole show is just so well thought out. So I'm really excited to see what comes, but I'm really sad. Anyway, my general consensus on Good Omens 2 is that, like, after a few days of thinking, I'm like, God, that was a bit world altering for me. Kind of not in the same way series 1 was. That really did like change my life, and there's a whole story with that, but like it was fun. It was entertaining. It did have a bit of a jarring vibe to it, and I still can't really quite decide what it is. I think honestly, like, the quality of the camera and the way it was shot has something to do with this. I don't know what it has to do with it, but I think it has something to do with it. A clue. I really enjoyed it and I highly recommend the series. I highly recommend watching series 1 and then lead right into series 2. I bet it's quite a nice watch, I say, knowing the last 10 minutes exist.